Are we still evolving? If so, is our moral instinct evolving as well?
I think the question of whether we're evolving and whether our moral instinct is evolving is a good one. I mean, I think for most people in biology, which I take myself to be a part of, think of evolution, biological evolution, as change in genetic frequencies. And there, I think it's an open question. Time's so little that we don't have necessarily the genetic analyses. But here's something that's kind of intriguing. If you look at the explosion in brain size in our evolutionary past, you see this period of rapid acceleration over a period of about 1 million years where it really goes up exponentially. But in the last 10,000 years, it's actually been going down. And this is really biological evolution, it's not cultural evolution. Now, some people argue that that's because there's been selection on smaller brain size, but it also could be selection on smaller body size, which then gives us the sense of a smaller brain. Okay? So the question is the difference in brain size due to selection on the brain as opposed to selection on the body, or of course both? So it's not clear what's happening in terms of our biological evolution, but there's no reason to suspect that there isn't change biologically in aspects of human biology, brain, genes, and so forth. The notion of changing moral sensibilities, I think here's where I really would like to appeal to an idea that the philosopher Peter Singer has pushed, which I like a lot, which is what he calls the expanding moral circle. This is not an argument for a genetic change in our moral sensibilities, but rather that we still have, intuitions about what's right or wrong. But what's very important about humans as a species is that we can reflect upon those intuitions and, depending upon a good argument, change what we think is morally permissible or not. So here's a very nice example, one in which Peter Singer played an important role. 50 years ago, there were no laws against doing whatever you wanted to animals. You could torture them, you could use them for any kind of medical research without any constraints at all. Here we are today, 2006, there are very serious constraints on what you can do with animals of a wide variety. And the range of animals that get included into that sphere changes almost every year. So in the early days, well, you couldn't operate on a chimpanzee, but a pigeon, whatever. Right? But nowadays, animals like birds and rodents and all sorts of organisms are included in a protective mechanism such that if you are going to do biomedical research, there are certain regulations. So we may still instinctively say, well, if I had to kill my dog versus my daughter, there's no question who I'm going to go for. That's fine. But we have now included in our moral sphere animals as being protected. In the same way that we used to have slavery in certain countries, and that's no longer banned. The same way that we protect against sexism and racism. That's a way in which our conscious, reflective capacities can look in on what may be intuitions going the opposite direction and change things about what we ought to do.